Now, Cook says she's not going anywhere, filing a lawsuit. Let's bring in Doug Flynn, certified financial planner, dog owner, I believe, co-founder, yes, at Flynn Zito.
Two dogs.
Two dogs. Oh, two's better than one. Let's see. So two things. Let me come back to the Lisa Cook thing. First, I started the show with the president's comments on the economy. And he said, the numbers he's going to exaggerate. He goes, oh, there's no inflation. Of course there's inflation. As I said, we want there to be some inflation. But he's characterizing this as a great, great economy. How do you characterize it right now, the economy?
The economy is pretty good. I think you do have some issues of it slowing down, certainly in the labor area, and that's where I think the Fed really is starting to finally focus. They've had that dual mandate of keeping inflation low and keeping the labor market going, but the labor market is ever getting weaker, little by little. So the rate of growth is slowing and continuing to slow, if you will. And so that's where the concern is, and that's what's causing people to get concerned. And so if you have inflation relatively under control, and I think anything below 3% is under control, then you can shift to labor and say, how is that doing? And if it's starting to get weak, you have to get a little concerned. So the rates can be a little bit lower. I don't think many people disagree with that. And so it's just a matter of when they're going to do it. And so it doesn't really disrupt that sort of thing that's going to happen next month or the month after with all the noise of what's going on right now.
So like things like inflation, like the consumer inflation number was 2.7% year over year in July, I think, okay? He says grocery prices are down. They're actually up year over year by more than 2%. They did drop 0.1% June to July, so maybe that's where you get that number from. But the point, so directionally you think he's essentially right? Is that what you're saying?
I think well, we had high inflation, and then they raised rates, and then it started to come down, and then they lowered rates a bit. So look, rates are definitely below you're not getting the spike from all the tariffs yet that they kept saying we were going to get. So at some point, you have to declare victory that inflation is sub 3%. They made a 2% sort of target, but that's arbitrary. It's like anything else. Inflation is relatively low. So if it's remaining around there, then I would say, yeah, that's good. You're not going to have those big spikes continually like we were having, and so that's a good thing. But now you shift to people's worry about their job and replacing their job if they don't like where they are. That becomes harder.
Yeah. Consumer confidence down a little today, I believe. Now, speaking of replacing jobs, this Lisa Cook story, if she's out of a job, he's trying to fire her. She's a Federal Reserve governor. Basically, the gist of it is he'd have to have cause to fire someone from the board. And he says that there was a form that was filled out for a couple of mortgages she had, I think a condo in Atlanta and a home in Michigan when she was teaching, and she said both were her primary residence, which if so would be wrong. Okay, so he's trying to fire her. I don't know if that's enough to fire her. A lot of people are debating that. I think the bigger picture is if this was happening in another country, I think the conversation would be, oh, is that is there stability in that country? Is there central bank independence in that country? But in this country today, the stock market is doing fine. Everybody's kind of shrugging this off.
There were some initial concerns when this broke that maybe the independence was going to be thwarted, but it's like, look, if you're honest and you say all these people are supposed to be independent and they're supposed to follow the data, it really shouldn't matter who appointed them, and it shouldn't matter whether they're replaced. They're supposed to act the same way theoretically. So if you're going to say that, listen, for everybody that Trump appoints, it's going to be on his side, then you have to say everybody that the previous administration appointed is on their side.
Trump said we'll have a majority, is how he put it today.
And that's a little bit ridiculous, but look, what really should happen is I don't even think you need to fire her. What I think you need to do is to say, listen, we know that you can't have two primary residences, and what happens when you borrow in mortgage, if it's an investment property, if it's a vacation home, you pay about 1/4 to 1/2 point more. If it's a pure investment property, you pay about 1/2 to 3/4 point more. Right. And what you should probably do is go back and pay the interest on what she didn't, and just have to refi at the current rates. When she took those loans out in 2018, the rates were about 4%. Just refi at 7%, and let's see if she stays on the side of not lowering rates. I think that could accomplish it probably without having to fire her.
Well, maybe. Sounds so simple. Instead of trying to fire her, she's suing. We'll see where it goes. Doug, thanks. Closing bell time is